few months ago, I decided to rent a cabin in Appalachia. I was 32 and needed a break after my breakup. The guidebook promised beautiful views and peace. I thought some time alone would help me find inspiration for my photography. I was excited to go. When I arrived, the cabin looked old but charming. It was surrounded by thick woods and bubbling creeks. I set up my camera and went exploring. The first 2 days were nice. I snapped photos of the trees, flowers, and streams. But something felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I dismissed it as my imagination. On the third night, I was jolted awake by a sound. It was a tapping on the walls. At first, I thought it was the wind, but it felt different. It had a rhythm, like someone was trying to communicate. It sent chills down my spine. I wanted to check it out, but I didn't. I pulled the covers over my head and tried to sleep. The next day, the tapping didn't stop. I also heard faint whistling. It was strange. I ventured into the woods hoping for answers. As I walked, I stumbled upon old toys half buried under leaves and weathered photographs in abandoned shacks. There was a playfulness to the things, but they felt out of place. I felt eyes on me, even when I was alone. Maybe it was the shadows, or maybe it was just my mind playing tricks. I kept hearing laughter, but every time I turned around, there was nothing there. Was it real? I didn't know. That night, it got worse. The tapping turned into scratching like nails on wood. I was scared. I checked the doors and windows, but everything was locked tight. I held my breath, hoping whatever was out there would just go away. Then, I thought I heard a child's voice. I finally decided to explore deeper into the woods. I needed to know what was causing this. I grasped my camera tightly and walked slowly, the chill in the air creeping into my bones. A couple of times, I caught a glimpse of something moving in my peripheral vision. I was on high alert. Just when I started to feel brave, I heard a giggle. It was close, too close. I froze. My heart was racing. I felt cold all of a sudden. I wanted to run back to the cabin, but I needed to confront whatever was out there. I took a deep breath and called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence filled the air. I squinted into the dark woods. Shadows stretched and danced among the trees. Suddenly I saw something. It was small and quick, darting between the trees. Was it a person? Was it just a shadow? My stomach dropped. I wanted to know, but fear locked my feet in place. I felt like I wasn't alone anymore. What had I stepped into? I stood there, questioning everything. The night wrapping around me like a thick fog. I stood there, heart pounding, trying to gather my thoughts. The woods felt alive, breathing around me, whispering secrets I wasn't meant to know. I called out again, "Hello? Is someone there?" This time, my voice was quieter, barely a whisper against the rustling leaves. No response, just the sound of the wind and the occasional crack of a branch. I hesitated a moment longer and then began to retreat. The shadows clung to the trees like ghosts, and with every step back, the laughter echoed in my mind. It felt like a game, but I was the only one not playing. I turned to head back to the cabin, but before I could get far, I noticed something on the ground. It was a small wooden toy, a carved figure of a child. My breath caught in my throat. Had I somehow dropped it before? I'd seen many abandoned things in the woods, but this felt different. It was in perfect condition, despite the thick layer of dirt covering it. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. The eyes seemed to follow me as I turned, and I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. Where had this come from? Who did it belong to? My instincts screamed to throw it away, but curiosity kept me rooted in place. That's when I heard a faint giggle, clearer this time, and it was directly behind me. I spun around so fast, the toy dropping from my fingers and hitting the ground. My heart raced, and I felt the tension in the air shift, grow heavy. I was no longer alone. "What do you want?" I shouted, panic rising in my throat. The only answer was more laughter, childlike, joyful, and haunting all at once. I stumbled backward, my back hitting a tree. The shadows felt thicker, swirling around me. I turned just in time to see a small figure darting away into the darkness, its outline barely visible. I didn't think, I ran, burst through the underbrush, branches scratching at my arms. I had to reach the cabin. It was the only safe place. I pushed on, branches tearing at my clothing as I sprinted. Behind me, the laughter continued, growing louder as I flew through the trees. Finally, I burst into the clearing, and there it was, the cabin. A welcome sight cloaked in the flickering light of my lantern. I slammed the door behind me, locking it fast. I leaned against it, gasping for air, my heart racing like a wild animal trying to escape. Then something caught my eye. The wooden toy sat on the floor where I had dropped it. I crept closer, my breath hitching. But it was no longer just a toy. Scribbled on its surface was a name, one that felt unsettlingly familiar. Sam? I staggered back. Who was Sam? I racked my brain but couldn't place it. I needed to know more. I grabbed my camera, the only thing that felt like a comfort in this haunting nightmare. I had to figure out who Sam was and what I had stumbled into. As I prepared to take a picture of the toy, the lights flickered. The cabin shuddered with a sound that wasn't the wind. It felt like something was here with me, waiting. Suddenly, everything went dark. I felt the darkness wrap around me like a heavy blanket. I blinked, willing my eyes to adjust, but nothing changed. My heart raced. With no light to guide me, I was utterly disoriented. The last death rattle of the lantern flickered out, plunging me into utter silence. Hello? I called out again, my voice trembling slightly. This time the word felt lost in the oppressive void. I fumbled for my camera, hoping the flash might push back the shadows. My fingers trembled as I dialed the settings, praying for some semblance of light. Just as I pressed the button, a blinding flash illuminated the cabin for a split second. I squinted through the brightness, catching movement in the corner of my eye. A small, dark figure stood near the corner. I gasped and stumbled back, falling into a chair. In that split second of light, I'd seen only a silhouette, but it was enough to send my pulse racing. Is anyone there? I whispered, more of a plea than a question. I was met with silence. My pulse echoed louder than the absence of sound. I had to know if I had truly seen something, or if I was losing my mind. With trembling fingers, I pressed the button again, and the flash lit up the room. My breath caught in my throat. The figure was closer. It was a child, a small boy with wide, dark eyes staring right at me. His mouth moved, but I couldn't hear anything. Panicking, I turned the camera toward him, hoping to capture this moment to prove I wasn't dreaming. But when I pressed the button, there was nothing. Just darkness on the screen. I was alone. The feeling of being watched crawled back, and the laughter returned, resonating in my ears like a ghostly echo. I stood, rising slowly. I had to confront whatever this was. Maybe it was Sam, the name on the toy. But was he a friend or a foe? Another flash of memory came to me, an old photograph I'd found in my mother's belongings. A smiling boy, sandy hair, bright eyes. I had dismissed it as irrelevant, but now it felt pivotal. Sam, I said softly, testing the name on my tongue. In the darkness, I heard a soft whimper. The boy looked scared, not mischievous. I started closing the gap between us, my heart racing with a mix of fear and compassion. I reached out a hand. Sam, is that you? But he backed away, shaking his head. Don't, he whispered, the voice barely above a breath. It's not safe. What did he mean? Before I could respond, the cabin trembled. The sound of scratching filled the air, nails against wood. I froze. This wasn't just a child. The shadows shifted, revealing a darker presence lurking just outside the cabin walls, a sense of malice pressing in on all sides. Get out! Shouted Sam, his small voice cracking with urgency. The fear in his eyes mirrored my own as he darted toward the door. The timber creaked ominously, like it was about to burst open. I scrambled after him, adrenaline surging through me. But before I could reach the door, it slammed shut. I felt the heat of breath against my neck, and I turned, facing the true darkness that had been waiting for me all along. I was not alone anymore. I stumbled back, heart racing, my mind screaming to get away. The darkness seemed to thicken, wrapping around me like a suffocating cloud. I forced myself to turn, searching for Sam in the dimness, but he was gone. Where had he run off to? The scratching sound was accompanied by whispers, soft, incoherent murmurs that raised the hairs on my arms. I had to leave. I couldn't stay here any longer. I bolted for the door, but before I could reach the knob, the air shifted, heavy and charged as if something was trying to establish its presence. Then I saw it again, briefly, a shadow darting across the wall. My breath quickened. "Sam!" I shouted, desperation seeping into my voice. Nothing answered but the scuttling sounds outside. I was trapped. With no other options, I swung around, scanning the cabin. My eyes landed on a small window, desperately dirty, only a sliver of moonlight finding its way through the grime. I ran toward it, hoping maybe I could squeeze through. But as I neared the glass, the scratching turned into something worse. Long nails scraping against wood, a low growl that sent chills racing down my spine. I spun back around, my heart hammering. My camera. I rifled through my bag, praying the flash could help me see that which couldn't be grasped in darkness. Quickly I fumbled with it again, hands shaking like leaves in a storm. What if this darkness wanted me too? Before I could press the button, the growl transformed into a roar, shaking the walls of the cabin. The entire room quaked with an otherworldly force. I clutched the camera, staring at the door that groaned under some unseen weight. I was caught between two horrors, the threat that trapped me inside and the unknown that lurked in the shadows. "Sam!" I yelled, hoping he was still nearby, that I wouldn't face whatever this was alone. That's when I spotted movement outside the door, something dark pressing against the wood. A face, twisted and grotesque, eyes glowing like embers. I staggered back, pressing myself against the opposite wall, gasping. Then came a frantic pounding. The door shuddered violently, as if whatever was outside was just as desperate to get in as I was to escape. "Help me," I cried, unsure whether I was talking to Sam or the specter behind the door. Suddenly, the door splintered. I caught a glimpse of something parting the wood. A jagged crack revealing glimpses of long, sharp teeth and a maw that seemed too wide. Panic clawed at my throat. I darted for the window. My instincts kicked in. Flee. I pushed against the window glass, scraping my palms raw. Just as I felt it give, the cabin erupted with a series of deafening cracks, echoing my fear. I made it through, tumbling out into the cool night air, but I knew I couldn't stop. I had to run. As I sprang to my feet, a scream pierced the darkness. "Don't leave me!" Sam's voice echoed behind me, laced with terror. I turned, staring back at the cabin, torn. But as I looked, the shadows swallowed the light, and I lost my resolve. I ran, not knowing what would happen to me, or to Sam left inside. All I knew was that I was in way over my head. Something had awakened in those woods, and it wasn't done with me yet. I sprinted through the trees, branches snatching at my clothes and skin. The moonlight barely penetrated the dense canopy above, wrapping the world in an unsettling cloak of darkness. Every step resonated with fear, the echoes of Sam's scream pounding in my ears. What do I do? I mumbled to myself, the panic bubbling just beneath the surface. I needed to find Sam, not just for him, but for my own sanity. The guilt gnawed at me, relentless and consuming. I shouldn't have left him. "I can't leave him," I whispered, nearly tripping over a root. I could hear it, more than just the whisper of the wind. The growls that had emanated from the cabin were now but a distant memory, replaced by a chorus of rustling sounds around me. Was something chasing me? Or were those sounds just figments of my imagination, amplified by the terror I felt? In the brief moments I paused to listen, I heard a rustle nearby, too loud to be a simple animal. My heart dropped. "Sam?" I called hesitantly, hoping for a response. Silence stretched out, palpable and heavy, punctuated by the distant sounds of unseen creatures. I pushed on, desperate to find any trace of him. Just then I stumbled upon the outline of a clearing bathed in faint moonlight. There were old, rotting logs strewn about, their surfaces covered in moss. I stepped into the clearing, my instincts on high alert. The trees around the edges loomed dark and oppressive. Then I saw something glimmer, metal gleaming under the moonlight. I moved closer, my breath hitching as I bent down. It was a flashlight. Sam's flashlight. Relief washed over me for an instant, but a gnawing dread replaced it quickly. "Where are you, Sam?" I picked it up, frantically flicking the switch, and the light burst to life, cutting through the darkness like a knife. With newfound determination, I moved deeper into the clearing, each step crackling underfoot. "Sam!" I shouted again, my voice reverberating as hope and fear collided inside me. The beam scanned the area, revealing more debris and scattered remnants of what looked like a campfire. But as I shined the light across the ground, I caught something that made my blood run cold. Drag marks. Long, deep gouges in the dirt, leading deeper into the woods. "Sam!" Just then my flashlight flickered. I cursed under my breath, tightening my grip. As if the shadows were aware of my search, they seemed to shift and grow denser around me. Anxiety crept back as I stepped back, evaluating my surroundings. And that's when I noticed it. A darker shape moving in the distance beyond the edge of the clearing. Something was there. My pulse quickened as I moved in that direction cautiously, but as I approached, the shadows pooled, obscuring whatever had been lurking. Then, without warning, a chill swept through the air and I heard a rustling behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, to see a figure emerging from the shadows. It wasn't Sam. This entity was hunched and skeletal, its glinting eyes locking onto mine. Panic surged through me. I stumbled backward. "Stay away!" I shouted, instinctively raising the flashlight like a weapon. The creature paused, tilting its head as if considering me. Then it lunged forward with an inhuman speed. I was trapped in my own fear, frozen, heart racing wildly. In one quick moment of clarity, I remembered the camera in my bag. I needed to react. I couldn't let it happen again. I reached for it, fumbling in my backpack as the creature came closer, teeth bared. And in that split second I realized, whatever was in those woods wasn't just hunting me. It had an agenda. There was something it wanted. Just as I pulled the camera out, the clearing fell silent. I felt the weight of the darkness return, and I knew I had to make a choice. The creature was almost upon me, and whatever happened next could change everything. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the camera, trying to steady my breath. The creature was close now, its eyes bright and menacing. I focused on it, feeling like the lens was my only shield. A flash of light illuminated its gaunt face, and I saw it clearly for the first time. Its skin was mottled and gray, stretched tight over bone. I pressed the shutter. The flash momentarily blinded it, causing it to hiss and recoil. I seized the chance and bolted in the opposite direction, adrenaline flooding my veins. The trees closed in around me, branches clawing at my arms as I ran, unsure of where I was heading but knowing I couldn't look back. "Sam!" I shouted again, the name breaking through the fear. I had to find him. I had to know if he was okay. Glancing over my shoulder as I maneuvered through the gnarly roots and underbrush, I saw that the creature had regained its composure. It moved with a predatory grace, weaving through the shadows, seemingly unfazed. I pushed myself harder, heart thudding, fear pushing me faster. After what felt like an eternity, I stumbled into another clearing, this one much larger than the last. The moon hung overhead, casting silvery light across the area. But instead of relief, a cold wave of dread washed over me. In the center of the clearing was a massive old tree. Its trunk was gnarled and twisted as if it had witnessed countless horrors. I could see carvings etched into the bark, symbols I didn't recognize. They seemed wrong, sinister. As I approached the tree, something pulled at my gut, a feeling that I shouldn't be there. But before I could turn away, I noticed markings on the ground surrounding the tree. They looked like footprints, half human, half something else. Suddenly a low growl came from the shadows behind the tree. Panic surged back and I spun around, flashlight illuminating the space behind me. But when the light hit the ground, I froze. There were more drag marks leading from the tree to the depth of the woods. The realization sunk in. Whatever had taken Sam might be returning here. The creatures were marking their territory. I stepped back, my mind racing. I had to get out of here, and fast. But just as I turned to escape, I heard a voice. A chilling, whispering sound that curled around my thoughts and made the hairs on my neck stand on end. Help. Me. It was Sam's voice. My heart raced again, a mix of hope and dread flooding me. I had to find him, but where was he? The creature was still lurking, its presence looming in the distance. I felt the pull of the tree, as if it wanted to share its secrets. But I couldn't focus on that now. I needed to follow the sound, to trace it back to Sam, wherever he might be. Stay close. I'm coming, I called out, urgency taking over as I sprinted toward the darker edge of the clearing. As I moved away from the tree, I realized something was off. The growl from before wasn't the only sound. There were others, a haunting chorus of whispers. The air thickened as I crossed back into the trees. A new realization hit me. Whatever was out here had drawn Sam in, and now it was coming for me. I ran deeper into the woods, following the echoes of Sam's voice, the notion of escape dimming with each step. But just as I thought I could feel his presence, the darkness thickened, cutting off the sound, swallowing me whole. Ahead, the shadow shifted, a flicker of movement at the corner of my vision. Something was watching me, and this was only the beginning. Branches snapped underfoot as I trudged deeper into the woods, the dim glow of the moon doing little to pierce the thick veil of darkness. Every rustle, every whisper, made me flinch. The chorus of sounds was unsettling. It felt as if the trees themselves were alive and breathing, holding their secrets close. "Sam!" I yelled again, voice wavering, mixing with the haunting echoes around me. I had to stay focused. I had to reach him. But the deeper I went, the more I felt the weight of the woods closing in. Then I saw it. A flicker again just ahead. A shadow crossed my path. I steadied my breath, reaching for my flashlight. With one quick motion, I turned it toward the source. My heart pounded as the beam revealed a small figure flitting through the underbrush. But it wasn't Sam, just a deer, startled by my commotion. It darted away, leaving me rattled. But it was the glimpse of movement that really unnerved me. Something out here was toying with me. I pushed on, finding myself at a narrow path, barely discernible beneath fallen leaves. The sounds from behind grew louder, echoes of laughter mingling with distant cries. I knew it couldn't be Sam laughing. We never would have come out here for fun. I hesitated, caught between instinct and fear, when I noticed a flash of white ahead. My heart skipped. A small piece of fabric fluttered from a branch, catching the light. It looked familiar. Sam's shirt. I rushed forward, hoping for a sign of him. But as I knelt to grab it, another growl rumbled in the shadows. I straightened up, pulse racing, flashlight slicing through the dark. The growling grew louder and sharper, more insistent. It was close. I had no time to linger. I glanced back down the narrow path, the chill of the wind biting at my skin. Then everything went quiet. The laughter, the whispers. The woods seemed to hold its breath. I took a cautious step, heart in my throat, when I saw it again. A figure emerged from the shadows, not far from me. A shape resembling a human, but distorted. It blended into the forest, its long limbs moving in a way that didn't seem right. It seemed to glide more than walk. My breath hitched, terror gripping me. "Sam?" I called out, but the name felt flimsy in the air. The figure tilted its head, a grotesque smile forming across its face. It didn't speak, but those eyes, they were wrong. They mirrored the darkness, reflecting nothing but malice. Before I could react, it lunged. I stumbled back, tripping over roots as I scrambled to escape. I was back on the path, the sound of my heavy breathing almost drowning out the growl behind me. "Help!" I shouted, but it felt useless. With one last glance over my shoulder, I dashed forward, feeling the cold breath of the creature on my skin. I didn't know where to go, but I could sense the air shifting again, the woods opening up in front of me. I could make out the outline of another clearing illuminated by the moon, I ran towards it, praying it would lead me to safety, or at least to Sam. As I burst into the clearing, I halted. There, lying on the ground, was a small bundle. I rushed over, the creature's growl fading behind me. But as I reached for it, I froze. That wasn't Sam's shirt. It was something else entirely. A ragged piece of fabric that looked like it belonged to. No, it couldn't be. That's when I saw it. Across the clearing near the old tree, something was stirring. Something that had no business being in the open at all. The movement near the old tree twisted my stomach. It was there, emerging from the shadow of the gnarled branches. I squinted to get a better look, but the darkness wrapped around it, obscuring the details. My heart raced again, and I fought the urge to bolt. I needed to know what it was. Before I could gather the courage to step closer, I heard a rustle behind me. Panic surged through me. Instinct screamed at me to run. I whipped around, flashlight beam dancing frantically. Nothing was there, just the woods swallowing the sound of my breath. But then I caught something out of the corner of my eye. The creature hadn't moved far. It stepped back, retreating slowly as if assessing me. My mind raced. What did it want? What was it waiting for? Sam! My voice trembled, but I shouted it again. Sam! It echoed back, revealing a void that made the hairs on my arms stand up. There was no answer, just the rustling of leaves. Courage bubbling up from somewhere, I crept toward the tree, flashlight in hand. The clearing was vast and empty, save for the fading glow of the moonlight hitting the ground. I stepped carefully, each footfall deliberate. The ragged fabric on the ground pulled at my focus, tempting me. I scanned the clearing again, but the creature remained hidden, its presence palpable. As I neared the tree, my flashlight flickered. A surge of frantic energy coursed through me. I tapped the base of it hard, watching the beam brighten again. The creature was still just beyond the shadows, watching. "Show yourself," I yelled. My voice was stronger now. I wasn't going to let fear dictate my next move. The trees around me seemed to whisper a warning. Then, as if provoked, it lunged again. Not at me, but at the fabric on the ground. I gasped as it stretched out a long, ugly hand, fingers curling to snatch it up. I caught a horrifying glimpse of its face, pale and twisted, eyes glinting with something akin to triumph. That's when the terrible realization dawned on me. It was mine. The fabric in its grasp was the tattered remnants of my own shirt, one I thought I'd lost days ago. But I had been there, hovering on the edges of its world. I could sense it now. It had been watching me long before I stepped into this nightmare. Suddenly the laughter returned, echoing through the trees, taunting me. The chilling sound clawed at my sanity. I was too exposed, too vulnerable here. I turned to run, but I could feel the ground shifting beneath me. Leaves crunched loudly, and branches snapped like twigs as I sprinted back toward the narrow path, the clearing closing in behind me. Before I broke through the trees, a voice, dark and low, slithered through the air. "You're not alone anymore." I stumbled, the weight of that statement crashing over me. I couldn't just run. I had to find Sam. Turning back toward the woods, I prepared to face whatever was waiting there. As dread clenched my throat, I took a deep breath and plunged into the darkness once more. I stepped cautiously into the darkened depths of the woods, the trees looming like ancient sentinels. The air felt thick, charged with an energy that made my skin prickle. Every rustle and snap echoed in my ears, making me hyper-aware of the dangers lurking in the shadows. "Sam," I called out again, but my voice sounded small and lost. No response came, just an unfriendly breeze that sent chills crawling up my spine. I pushed further, the feeling of being watched pressing down on me like a weight. As I moved deeper into the woods, I stumbled over a gnarled root that shot out like a snake. I caught myself just in time, heart racing. I couldn't afford to be careless. Not now. My flashlight beam swept across the surrounding trees, but they only revealed more darkness, and the oppressive silence was slowly driving me mad. That's when I noticed something in the distance. A flicker of light. My curiosity wrestled with caution. Was it Sam? Or something much worse? I took a cautious step forward, then another, until I found myself weaving through the underbrush toward the glow. The closer I got, the more I felt my heart thundering in my chest. I could see now that it was a fire, crackling and alive with warmth. A fire in the woods felt wrong, too out of place. It beckoned like a siren's call. "Sam!" I shouted again, this time hoping for a response. Just the crackle of flames answered my cry. I peeked around a tree, and my breath caught in my throat. There, illuminated by the fire's flickering light, stood a figure. It was tall and seemed to be wearing a cloak that shifted like mist. I could barely make out its features, but it turned slightly, and I caught a glimpse of hollow eyes staring straight at me. Dread flooded my veins. Just then, I felt a sharp tug at my shirt. I whipped around and my eyes widened. A small child stood behind me, her face hidden in the shadow. "Are you lost?" she asked, her voice soft but haunting. "I'm looking for my friend Sam," I replied, feeling a mix of hope and unease. The girl nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here." Her warning was somber, a grave tone that seemed too heavy for such a small voice. I opened my mouth to ask what she meant, but before I could utter a word, the cloaked figure turned fully to face me. The moment I locked eyes with it, static electricity filled the air. I felt my heart drop as the realization hit me. It was the same creature I had seen before, lurking in the shadows, but somehow even more menacing in the light. Everything inside me screamed to run, but the child stood frozen, blocking my path. "Stay with me," she whispered, a wild look in her eyes. My instincts told me to break free, but fear rooted me in place. I was caught between the figure and this strange girl, unsure of what to do next. That's when I saw it. Glinting in the firelight, something glimmered on the ground, a dagger glistening darkly, almost inviting. I felt the weight of choice settle heavily on my shoulders. The creature's gaze bore down on me, and I knew I had to decide fast. "Don't," the girl warned, but the knot in my stomach urged me toward the fiery light and the dagger's dark promise. A pulse of energy spread through me, and I could tell, whatever was happening next, it wouldn't wait long. As if the universe cracked open just for me, I lunged forward, grabbing the dagger from the ground, feeling its cold handle against my palm. The moment I touched it, the choking darkness surrounding us pulsed, alive with heavy anticipation. The girl's eyes widened, and I felt the balance of power shift. "Please don't hurt him," she whimpered, her hand reaching for me, but it was too late. The cloaked figure let out a low growl, its hollow eyes narrowing into slits, fixating on me with an intensity that could peel paint from the walls of the cabin. I fled. "Where's Sam?" I demanded, my voice stronger than I felt. The blade seemed to hum in response, charging my resolve. I was not the prey here. The tables had turned. "Just a child's plaything," the figure rasped, its voice echoing through the trees and into the depths of my core. "What you seek is not for you to take." Just then, a rustle behind me made my heart jump. My flashlight beam darted to a familiar figure emerging from the shadows. "Sam!" I cried, relief flooding me. But my joy was short-lived. He appeared ragged and pale, eyes wide with fear and confusion. The girl glanced at him, her expression darkening. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline surging through me as the cloaked figure stepped closer, its form shifting with a grotesque fluidity, like smoke rolling off a dying fire. "Don't leave," Sam whimpered, his voice trembling. "It's not safe." "We've got to go," I yelled back, brandishing the dagger like a shield. The warmth of the firescape clung to my skin, yet the weight of the surrounding dark seemed insurmountable. Hastily I moved toward Sam, gesturing for him to follow, and the girl suddenly lunged at us, blocking our escape. "You can't. You're not ready. He'll take you." "Take us where?" I screamed, grasping Sam's arm, urging him forward. The creature's presence grew heavier still, its thousands of shadows swirling like angry bees. "He's hungry!" the girl cried, trembling. But there was no time to question her warning. I could feel the dark figure lurking, manifesting itself in the growing silence, and everything told me that I needed to escape. But how? With a pulse of courage, I pressed forward, gripping Sam's hand tightly, pulling him alongside me toward the darkness. The girl swayed, caught in a mix of fear and loyalty, but I could see that she had made her choice. "No!" she yelled as I pulled Sam through the gap between the trees, the dagger clutched in my grasp. The laughter exploded in a symphony of chaos, the cloaked figure roaring behind us, echoing against the trees, feeding off our fear. I sprinted forward, heart racing, dragging Sam behind me. "Keep running," I urged. I had no idea where we were headed, just that we had to keep moving, fueled by sheer instinct. As we launched through the underbrush, I heard Sam's tiny feet struggle to keep up. "What about her?" he implored, looking back anxiously. "We can't leave her." The darkness around us screamed of malice, gasping through the branches, but I kept pushing. "Sam, focus. Just move." We burst back into the clearing, but something was shifting in the air. The gasping laughter faded, and a different sound took over. A low, mournful whimper, like the woods were crying itself. We had crossed something, and in that moment, the clearing began to warp. The shadowy creature appeared at the edge again, its spine twisting grotesquely, its mouth widening into an unnatural grin. It loomed between us. And escape. "Sam, now!" I yelled, and we plunged deeper into the thicket of trees, the flashlight flickering in the distance. I could feel the ground vibrating beneath us, feeding off our fear. Just when I thought I was losing him, I spotted a gap, a narrow passage through the thicket up ahead. "This way!" I shouted, pulling Sam with urgency. We squeezed through, branches scraping against our skin, and with every step the darkness behind us gave furious chase. We burst out into an open field on the other side, panting as we glanced back. The distant cacophony continued, but it felt muted, almost swallowed by the vastness of the world surrounding us. In the twilight stillness, I turned to Sam. "Are you okay?" His eyes welling with tears, he nodded, though fear flickered in his chest. "I thought I'd lost you." "I thought I had lost you too," I said softly, wrapping my arms around him. But just as relief began to settle, the wind shifted ominously, swaying the grass around us into dark, whispering shapes. Was it over? I dared to hope, but wondered how much had followed us through the darkness. Why had that girl shielded us? What had she known? I glanced back into the thicket. The shadows stirred, always keeping a watchful distance. "Let's keep moving," I said finally, my heart still pounding. There were answers waiting somewhere, mysteries buried within the woods whispering back, and now it felt like our lives were forever intertwined with the darkness lurking there. What had we unleashed? I didn't know, but it was far from finished.